So my name is Karen, and I would say the one major event that took place in my life that made me realize I had to get intentional about a resiliency journey was the divorce of my parents. I grew up, the happy family, the two parents, an older brother, everything was great. We were all very close knit and that kind of thing. Then life happened, and about after 20 years of marriage, my parents decided to go ahead and go their separate ways. To a lot of people, that might not seem like a big thing, but for me, it was because it was my sense of stability. It was my sense of security. It was all I knew. My foundation was shaken, and I realized I was like, okay, if I don't want this to affect me negatively in the long run, and in my future and my relationships, then I need to go ahead and get started on healing from this. So I would say the things that made me realize that things were getting more challenging was anytime I would take a call as a dispatcher that involved some kind of loss. 6 months into being a dispatcher, I got this call from an elderly female who her house was catching on fire. And her husband were not able to get out. Too much smoke had filled the house. She was disoriented. She was breathing in smoke, so she was having a hard time breathing. She couldn't find her way out of the home. And I stayed on the phone with her until she took her very last breath, and she was gone. And there was nothing we could do. There was nothing the paramedics could do. There was nothing the firefighters could do once they got there. And all I could do was just reassure her, help is on the way, help is on the way. And that feeling of helplessness and that feeling of loss was just really hard. I realized that there was something triggering inside of me every time I got those kind. It was because I was connecting it back to the loss of my family structure and of my parents. And although it wasn't a physical loss with them, it was an emotional attachment that was severed and that was broken. And so, as weird as it sounds, I kind of related that loss to my dispatch losses. It is super important to be intentional about staying resilient, and it's a nice word and everyone loves it, but few of us know what it actually means or how to actually do it in everyday life. And so there's this one little acronym, I guess, that I've learned to live by, and it's APR, and it stands for acknowledge, process, and release. And so the first step for me is acknowledging my feelings, acknowledging that call I took was really hard for me. Being able to say that, admitting it, asking myself, what did this trigger in me? Why did I feel this one so heavy, and why did I not feel that other one as heavy? And so for me, like I mentioned, those calls where there's a loss of life, those are pretty difficult for me. And then the second step is processing. So whether it's processing in counseling, which I've done plenty of since 2015, or whether it's therapy, which I'm still currently in, whether it's talking to my parents, who are a great support system, whether it's talking to one of my pastors, whether it's talking to senior dispatchers who have felt this and understanding, finding a way to process that feeling of grief, that feeling of loss, whether it's for someone else sweating it out, going to the gym, whatever it is, praying, whatever you need to do to process that, because it's actually been scientifically proven that trauma is stored in different parts of the body. And if it's not dealt with accordingly, it can lead to sickness and other diseases. And we all know the emotional effects that it can take on us. We've all seen those hard cops that don't care about anyone or anything, and unfortunately end up either taking their life or something like that happens. And so it's important to process that and let it out, not just say like, oh, I'm struggling, and leave it at that. Oh, I'm struggling, what do I need to do about it? And then the third one is release. So release those emotions, release those issues. My relationship with the Lord is something that I hold very near and dear to my heart. My faith is something that I hold on to in the toughest times, when I'm going through all of this. And so personally, I would say that my why is it's a calling. If it weren't for my faith and the conviction I had of knowing that this is a calling and not just a job, I would have been gone. But just that privilege of knowing that I can be that person and that beacon of hope to someone else on their hardest days, that's what keeps me going. Just make sure that you're stable and you're grounded, whether it's in your faith, whether it's in that community support or your peers, whatever it is, find a way to take care of yourself constantly. Keep your mental health in check. Know your triggers, know your own red flags, know when you're starting to become that person that no one wants to be around, know when you're becoming that dispatcher that no one wants to talk to. Because recognizing that in yourself can can help you to deal with it, and then you figure it out, you work through it, and then you're back on your feet. But it's important to know yourself and know what kind of things are going to affect you in the way that they are, and processing them and dealing with them accordingly.